All right, coming in on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we are going to talk about the five guys that will ultimately be responsible for how dangerous it is, the offensive line. Plus, we will talk with Kara McCutchen. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Stick around.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor, hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications of new videos, and of course, upvote the video itself. Thank you very much for that. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, we have talked this week as we are moving closer to spring practice, and the one story that is going to dominate the narrative henceforth, everybody's going to be sick of it by Labor Day, is the quarterback competition. So we talked about the strengths of each of the two quarterbacks on Monday. On Tuesday, we talked about the help that the running backs are going to give, and that room is going to give to the quarterback competition. And whoever takes snaps is going to benefit from that room being stacked. That is the heart of this offense, and it's going to give the quarterbacks time to develop. Now we're going to talk about the five players that are ultimately going to determine how dangerous this offense can be, and that's the offensive line. I know I did clever wordplay on the front and the whole 9 yards, but this is truly going to be a different experience with this line, because if they can protect the quarterback to where they are more than servable. Let's say they're a plus offensive line. You have an offense that is going to be very, very dangerous. Now, understand this. This offensive line is always going to look bad occasionally because of the way the system is built. All the RPOs that they run and run plays going out, there's going to be a situation where the quarterback holds the ball too long, the offensive line is run blocking, they get beat, there's pressure, so it's always going to happen. So whenever you judge this offensive line, you can't necessarily judge this offensive line the way you would say a 2002 offensive line. It has all changed. The acceptability matrix is a little bit different now, and that is okay? But what we need to be able to do, and what is really going to be real, and how you can tell if this offensive line is really good at what they do, is on 3rd and 7 if the quarterback has time to throw the ball. When the defense knows it's a pass, when a pass play is called, and they're pass blocking, can they protect the quarterback? On 3rd and 1, whenever they need to run the ball, can they run the ball? When the RPO is taken out of the equation, what does this offense look like? That is how you can judge this offensive line and how it will look going forward. Do not judge it on 1st and 10. Do not judge it on 2nd and 7. It just doesn't matter the way they run RPOs and the tags that they have on all these plays. Every running play has a pass tag. Every pass play has a run tag. The defense can never be exactly right, but what can happen in that situation is the offensive line can be caught off guard. The offensive line can make a mistake and blow up the play occasionally by run blocking. You end up with a lineman downfield 7 yards on a pass play because he's run blocking. So judge the offensive line on obvious pass situations and obvious run situations and how they do there. Now, over the last couple of years, Ole Miss has struggled a little bit in obvious run situations. That's kind of on the offensive line, and is also kind of the fact that they were lining up with Jerry and Ely at 175, 180 pounds at tailback. And whenever Snoop Conner lined up back there, the defense absolutely knew what was coming because he came in before the 3rd quarter. It's like, what is this guy doing in the game? This is a run play. We need to attack it. We need to pinch down. And we need to do what we need to do on short yardage. Now with Zach Evans being an every down back, I assume is going to play most of the game and is by far the most gifted player that we have signed in the backfield potentially ever. Now the defense can't make that snap judgment because the reason Jerry and Ely was playing, Zach Evans offers those same things. The reason Snoop Connors was playing, Zach Evans offers those same things. We talked about Zach Evans yesterday, and I think 1,300, 1,400 yards is on the table for it. But this offensive line is going to be a difference maker. So our question of the day, and I want you to put it down in the comment section below if you don't mind, is which offensive lineman do you think is going to have the breakout year? Who needs to step up to get where we want to get? And we have choices and everybody knows what's going on. I mean, it could be anybody. And we don't even know what the final five is going to be. But in your opinion, who is the player that needs to step up to get Ole Miss where they need to be? I am going to go with Nick Broeker at guard. If he can succeed at guard and the tackles perform well, the offensive line is a net plus. If they are a net plus, this is a 7, 8, 9 win team. With breaks, 10 wins. I've gone through the schedule and just kind of talked my way through it. I need to see what it looks like in spring practice. I need to see the spring game. Because some people are going to tell you it doesn't matter. It does matter. Every rep on field matters for these coaches. Period. It all matters. They're going to tell you that they could just do away with spring practice and everybody would be happy. Yeah, that people are risk adverse, but what happens when you do away with spring practice? We saw the defense in 2020. Coaches are insanely slow decision makers, and they need that film. So this spring will be very important, especially for this quarterback competition. Now, we're talking about a different quarterback style a little bit for both of them. Jackson Dart is 6'3", 210 pounds. He's like a plus-size Matt Corral. He's more of a physical Matt Corral. He kind of runs like Matt Corral thought he was. You know, Matt Corral was kind of, for lack of a better word, I'm not saying anything derogatory, but he's like that Chihuahua that thinks he's a Doberman. At 6'1", 190 pounds, Matt Corral was out there running around like he was Cam Newton. And that's fine. As a senior or junior, whatever it was last year, that got him in a little bit of trouble in the physicality because once he got hurt, he couldn't ever quite get right. I think he'll be fine by next football season, but he couldn't quite ever get right after the Tennessee game. Jackson Dart provides that physicality in the run game that we saw real similar to last year. That's the reason I say that Jackson Dart is essentially a plus-sized Matt Corral. He's Matt Corral with 2 more inches and 15 more pounds. So that'll be good for that situation. Luke Altmaier. And people who discount Luke Altmaier, and I saw it in the comment sections, and I hear you. I don't think Luke Altmaier is going to win the job. If you listen to the podcast, I said in there, a tie goes to Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is brought in with the expectation that he will win the job. But Luke Altmaier is a good player. And as he showed in the Sugar Bowl, he was a gamer. Someone that took very few reps leading up to it, that found a way to make plays with his feet. That's the thing that people need to realize. He made plays with his feet, scrambling out to pass. Not like necessarily Matt Corral did where he was scrambled to run. He scrambled to throw the ball, to get in a better position, to get better arm angles. He did some really cool things in that game. And we lost the game, so people are going to just say, well, okay, that's it, because that's the way fans do this. But that's not necessarily the case with Luke Altmaier. Now, the point is, if the offensive line is average to below average, that is going to be an advantage in the system next year. That is how Luke Altmaier can make his bones, by scrambling to throw the football, to make up for the mistakes, the experience in the system. That is how Luke Altmaier can do it. Now, I don't think Luke Altmaier is going to win the job. I think Jackson Dart is going to be the quarterback in the fall. I'm just letting you know how Luke Altmaier can win and his path forward, because it is not a slam dunk that Jackson Dart wins this job. You might think that because he transferred in, but Luke Altmaier is a good player. And of that same class, he was a top 150 player. He's a good football player, and he showed very good arm strength against a very good defense in the Sugar Bowl. Remember, Luke Altmaier, if he wins the job, will never start a more important game than he's already played in. Period. Jackson Dart, their team went 4-8 last year. His most important game is coming up against Kentucky if he's the starter in week 5. That'll be the most important game. That'll be the gut check. that'll be the point where he knows. Luke Altmaier's already been there, and he had a chance to develop while the Jackson Dart saga was dragging on and on and on. That little advantage in the preseason workouts, I'm sure he took it to his advantage. But we will see with that quarterback competition, because it is the story. We're going to talk about it a lot from all different angles, and we're going to do it for the next 6 months. So everybody strap in, because it is the most important story of the day. Man, I do love March Madness and those brackets, but I can't remember the last time I actually went deep or even won any money. I'm hedging my bets this year with Stat Heroes NCAA Pick'em contest. Stat Heroes single game Pick'ems pits a star player against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take back control of those from those handicappers that always seem to have the advantage. Start focusing on the players you know best with the gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, odds, or funky props. Stat Hero gives you the advantage, resulting in the gamers winning 4 times more often. Why? Because Stat Hero eliminates the mystery about who or what you're going up against. So, this is what you do. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Make sure to check out Locked On Bracket Breakdown March 14th right here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast feed and YouTube channel. College basketball experts Chris Gordy, Andy Patton, and betting expert Lee Sterling give you in-depth breakdowns on every matchup. March Madness is right around the corner. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Hit the bell, and of course, upvote itself. If we get to 1,000 subscribers by football season, yes, we will do a post-game live show that you can participate in that'll have chat the whole 9 yards during football season. So we just want to hit that 1,000 number. We're going to hit that 1,000 number, by the way. We're at 550 right now. But if we hit it, we'll do it. Now, okay. So the big controversy of the day revolves around John Rice Plumlee and potentially sign stealing. Now, they say John Rice Plumlee, they say just random player, they were stealing signs. But John Rice Plumlee is the one that would know the signs because he was on this team last year. And this is what I have to say about that. If they were stealing signs and our execution's the only reason we didn't sweep them, you can't really blame sign stealing about that middle game. So our execution and our ability to hit the ball kept us from sweeping them. They didn't do a particularly good job of doing it. I just don't know if there's that much to it. I don't know what is entirely going on. Maybe the fact that John Rice was on the other bench, it was in the heads of the Ole Miss players. I do not know. But at the end of the day, if John Rice was not on Central Florida's side and he did not know the signs, us taking 2 of 3 and losing because of our own execution, they are a pitiful sign-stealing team, honestly. And I don't think this deserves much to be talked about, much to be worried about. I think it is more along the lines of somebody being upset for the sake of being upset. But if you look at it, that Central Florida team came to Oxford last year and took 2 of 3 when we were number 1 in the country. That same team. We went down there, took 2 of 3. We could have swept them, but our own execution prevented it. It wasn't anything in sign stealing that was happening. We were able to take 2 of 3 on the road in Orlando with a real good shot at sweeping them. That was a great pitching performance by John Gaddis, who is going to be the Friday starter this week. John Gaddis gets a Friday start against Oral Roberts. Derek Diamond moves to Saturday, and to be determined on Sunday. It's like we've been talking the last couple of weeks about pitching. They're trying to figure some stuff out before the SEC slate starts. Now, if you look at SEC teams, they're always going to be good players. I'm not saying they're not going to be good players, but there's no Kumar Rocker this year. There's no Jack Leiter. Those guys don't seem to be throwing the ball. So for any year for Ole Miss not to have top-end pitching, this might be the year. That's my point. And I'm really looking forward to what this looks like, honestly. Now, we're coming up with Kara McCutchen in the next segment, and she's going to talk all about Ole Miss sports and everything. And we might talk about the rotation. We might talk about baseball. We might talk about the basketball game last night, which we probably will, where Ole Miss takes on Missouri and Emily. Central Florida Rebel Club had a get-together nearby. It seemed like a good thing. Tried to get them to come on the show. They just couldn't get it finalized. So if you went to that, I hope it was fun. If you didn't, oh well. Also, with Locked On Now, I will be doing about a minute-long piece on Ole Miss basketball tonight. So I'm really, really looking forward to that as well. And also last night, Ole Miss played Alcorn State. So nice little RPI bomb potentially for Ole Miss there. So I want everybody to enjoy what's going on. I want everybody to have fun because that's the purpose of this. We are not a news site. We don't pretend to be a news site. What we are is about commentary and perspectives. We try to find people that have different perspectives about Ole Miss sports, and perhaps that can give you a different idea of what's going on. Because what we noticed in the past, and the people that were basically creating the narrative around Ole Miss sports, is they were only very one-sided and very self-reliant. So basketball coaches and everything, they might talk about they need you to get you angry. Angry results in subscriptions, and they do this over and over again. This is game, and it just makes following Ole Miss sports not fun. Now, we cover Ole Miss basketball, but we don't talk about that. We tell you kind of what's going on. We look at different people talking about what's going in each game, and it leads us to a conclusion that we get to. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's nothing, inside the box. We're not doing anything special. But what we are doing is just talking to different people that might have interest in Ole Miss sports. Whether it be Tom Vanderford, whether it be Cara McCutcheon, whether it be Bill Flowers. We've had several people. NIL groups have come on this show. So we want you to be informed of what's going on, but we don't want to tell you a thing of what to think. We want you to decide what to think. We want you to enjoy being a fan again. That is the goal of this show, is for you to enjoy being a fan again. And people that are not fans, they try to lead you down a path to where everything, oh, you don't care. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. But the reality is they're busy and they just don't want to work. And to do that, they make it sound like that this is an imposition that is completely above and beyond, and that's just not the case. Case is they want you to think it doesn't belong, much like people did bowl games 15 years ago, and now they're opting out of them because they just don't want to cover them. They just don't want to do it. There's a laziness factor in the media today. It just is what it is. So, and that's not fun for an Ole Miss fan. So we try to make this fun. Whenever it's not fun, we won't do it. You look at our post-game pod in basketball, once it got down to about 50 views a video, we quit doing it. Moved over to baseball. Now baseball is getting upwards to 400. It's all about your interest. And us not being a news story, us not being a news organization, that allows us to function like this. And because of that, I think it could be a lot of fun for you guys, and especially once we get into football season. It's going to be pretty amazing. All right. March Madness is only a few weeks away, and that means you need to start thinking now about where you're going to be running your brackets this year. Are you going for the usual? Are you looking for the best? We've done our homework here, and we're running brackets with RunYourPool.com. Along with the standard brackets, Run Your Pool offers game types like Survivor or Pick X. They have options to edit scoring, and they offer more intel to make your picks. All the stuff you will not find at ESPN or CBS. If you got a business, Run Your Pool can help you take some of that madness magic and play alongside your employees or even gain customers. Plus, they offer full white glove customer service, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups you will ever find. So clearly, we believe Run Your Pool because, like I said, we're running our brackets there ourselves. There's no truer test than that. So if you want to play against us for a shot at a cash prize, join us at runyourpool.com/lockedon. And while you're there, create your own pool for your friends and family and enter Pure Madness at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. All rules and details will be available there. That's runyourpool.com/lockedon for your chance to win a cash prize. We look forward to seeing and beating you there. It's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, welcome our perspective segment this weekend. We have Kara McCutchen come in to talk about all manner of things Ole Miss-wise. There's apparently an Ole Miss OU beef going on still that has been going on since January. She wants to talk a little bit about Matt Corral and potentially Seattle and maybe a little JRP stuff. How you doing, Kara?
Doing good. How are you? Happy to be here.
I'm just peachy. So I haven't really heard about this OU Theo Weiss thing. What's going on with that?
So Theo Weiss, it doesn't give a lot about the entirety of the article, but there was a kind of a clip of a question, I guess he was asked, and it was his response talking about, I guess, dropping out of the transfer portal and deciding to stay at OU. And I think he had mentioned that at the time he kind of didn't want to stay on after Lincoln Riley, and he was looking at Ole Miss. And he said we, not really hinting that, let's say, Lebby was talking to him before he hit the transfer portal, but there was some kind of conversation eventually with Lebby about Ole Miss, and then Lebby ended up at OU, and now Theo Weiss is there, and he decided, okay, I want to stay with OU, and now I have Lebby. And so there's this this says so much about why he didn't go to Ole Miss because of Lebby, and that means so. I think some of OU is still reeling from the Lincoln Riley move, so it's like this validation after Dart and Trigg kind of were like, oh, I'm going to go to Ole Miss. They're like, oh, well, we kept Theo Weiss, so therefore it's obviously Lebby's the better of the Lebby, Lane Kiffin, I guess. Who was the actual offensive guru there.
Yeah, and they're always going to say that and act like that, but the reality of it is they just wanted a win. They just needed a win because everybody and their sister, it seemed like, was transferring away from Oklahoma, and they have this huge ego about their own program. So I guess I can understand a little bit what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's a little funny. Of course, I can't let it go. I got to poke a little fun. So I definitely kind of poked the bear a little bit with that and kind of made comments like, oh, so we're still needing that validation right now. But so it's definitely kind of interesting to see that, I guess you could say, somewhat of a rivalry starting to try kind of form between Ole Miss and OU.
Yeah, and if Oklahoma ever plays Lincoln Riley, I mean, I'd be all for that. That'll make the Ole Miss Lane Kiffin thing in Tennessee look tame. I mean, there's some serious hatred right now going on between those two parties.
Yeah, so, 100%. So it would be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt Corral at the Combine was photographed with Lane Kiffin and Monty Kiffin talking to Pete Carroll. A couple of days later, they traded Russell Wilson. So that's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely an interesting one of the things that I think I'm kind of looking at with Seattle right now is what they're doing to kind of keep DK, because I think it's very obvious that DK was very frustrated with Seattle. And so I'm kind of curious if Matt Corral, or just even the image of Matt Corral, is some sort of way to kind of keep Metcalf a little bit happy. It's an Ole Miss guy at quarterback. It's like someone he knows. Would he be willing to stay and not wanting to be traded? I think Seattle would be a good landing spot for Matt Corral, but I'm very interested in that whole dynamic there and the connection.
And it came out today that Carson Wentz was traded to the Washington Commanders. So that's kind of another piece that was on the board that might be taken off. And now instead of Washington, Indianapolis becomes a potential spot for a quarterback. So it's kind of interesting because we just all assumed going into this, it was like Saints, Steelers, Redskins, or Commanders. Saints, Steelers, Commanders. And now it's Saints, Seahawks, Steelers, and Colts. And it's kind of interesting.
With a hint of Lions in there that the rest of us are trying to just push out and hope that never happens. So
yeah. If the Lions draft somebody besides Kenny Pickett, I think everybody will be disappointed. I mean, Kenny Pickett can go to the Lions and everybody forget about him and everybody will be fine. But either him or Willis or anybody else, maybe Sam Howell goes to the Lions. That would probably be a good fit. Sam Howell. Good.
Yeah. But I think this saga of the Matt Corral, like where is Matt Corral going to end up? Very, very interested. It looked like he had a good presence at the combine despite not being able to really throw or participate. Measurements look good. So, but I definitely was intrigued with the Pete Carroll discussion with Monty Kivish, see all the photos with them. So very intriguing. I'm wondering there kind of the connection with DK, if there is one. Just a thought that like kind of entered my mind. Because I think one thing DK made very clear was he wasn't very happy in Seattle. So I'll be interested to see how that kind of all comes together.
Well, one thing's for sure with Matt Corral is he would do well in the interview segment, no matter where the interview was, because talking to Matt Corral, he's a very personable guy. He's very, he draws you in. I mean, that's the reason he is a fan favorite, is his interactions with the media and seeing how he talks. Even this year, the numbers might not be as good as Eli Manning or Chad Kelly, but everybody talks about this year being the best year for a quarterback. And that's just because he's probably an A-plus leader, better than any leader that Ole Miss has ever had. And that's going to come across in an interview. And I just think that the situation with him talking to Pete Carroll, I guarantee you impressed him because that's what he does.
I would agree.
All right. And we were talking a little bit before we went on the air, just full disclosure to everybody, about the sign stealing thing at Central Florida and what's going on. And I was interested in your perspective as an Astros fan, how you would deal with that.
Yeah, I tried to actually make a joke at my own expense earlier today about JRP sign stealing and how vile that was, how anyone could support that, especially as an Astros fan. But I had to laugh a little bit about it. Even if he did do it, I would say that our coaches were probably prepared. If they didn't change it up, like obviously they weren't worried. And I would agree with you. I would say that UCF probably would be like, if they were stealing signs, they should probably watch our 2017 season and see how to perfect doing that. So maybe some trash cans, maybe, I don't know, maybe a buzzer here or there. So
yeah, if UCF was stealing signs, they suck at it. I mean, that's just the bottom line of it. Because no outcome of that game was determined by anything other than lack of execution by Ole Miss's bats in Game 2, period.
100%. So I still hope JRP well, and there's no ill will there if he was doing it. I don't think it had any impact on anything.
So this week, the theme, because I have a theme for my thumbnails every week, and I like to try and see if people can guess it. But this week it is rock music. Nice, very good. Archie heard that, believe it or not. My dog did. And I have Kickstart as Monday, and I went with The Heart instead of My Heart because of Zach Evans. So Kickstart, that was a Motley Crue reference because of the Hulu series Pam and Tommy. And tomorrow is going to be Five for Fighting. So I'm trying to think of what I need to do for the wide receiver position. What would you recommend for rock music as a thumbnail title for the wide receiver unit?
So like a song-wise?
A song-wise, a band-wise. I'm thinking about in the future to like do a thing like a Dixie Chicks themed week and stuff like that. And, cold day in July and all that. So that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to match my thoughts with a rock thought and theme it together and make it. It's just a little fun thing that I do. Also, if you have any questions in the comments, put an idea down in the comments for me if you won't mind.
So it's hard because if it was quarterback, I would say you definitely have to go with Foo Fighters. Like, There Goes My Hero. It just, obviously it goes with, wide receiver. It's going to be hard to think of. Right now, Foo Fighters is all on my mind. But if you needed a quarterback one, like, on it. But.
Yeah. We could do something to do with hands. There has to be.
Well, I don't know if you would do fuel in my hands. I don't know if that one matches, but man, stump me on that.
Yeah. I just brought this up.
Creativity's not there.
So it could be quite interesting. Watching the basketball game, it looks like Ole Miss is going through with their customary 5-minute scoring drought, where Missouri took a 32-32 halftime lead and is now at 42-34. So we'll see what goes on there. Yeah, I just, if you think of anything, let me know, because I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to theme this, and just because these thumbnails are fun for me, because I enjoy the creative aspect of it. But it could be a lot of fun. Good grief, Emily Arena's Jumbotron is huge. It's like the length of the basketball court. Yeah, it's huge.
So do you know, like, the crazy thing here is not only on this game, if we lose, we would be giving Missouri program history of beating a team 3 times in one season. Like, I just don't think we can let that happen. So hopefully they get going.
Yeah, I just don't think it's our choice. Now, everybody talks about in March and everything with Kermit, like, one of the arguments is everybody wants to be good. Yeah, but everybody doesn't play with 60% of their starting lineup out. I mean, it just killed the season. And now that we don't have a point guard at all, I mean, we're just basically duct taping it together, trying to do the best we can. And because of it, I mean, we get in trouble. And also, we don't have a dedicated scorer. I've been waiting all year for Matt Morrell to become that guy that just shows up, that whenever we need a basket, he gets to the hoop or gets to the free throw line and just stops the bleeding doing this. And nobody seems to be willing to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have the talent there. There just needs a few changes in execution there, some healthy, keeping some guys healthy. But I agree.
Yeah, and God bless them. Austin Crowley, Sammy Hunter, and Luis Rodriguez, they probably all 3 need to be processed and moved out, go into the portal and just be replaced, because this was the year for them to step up, and they just didn't do it. There was nothing there, and they proved to be a liability, and that just became a thing.
Well, now I'm going to be thinking of songs with hands for probably the rest of the night.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. We could do like Zombie, the Cranberries, in your hands or whatever. Yeah, never mind. So yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do, is every day come up with a thumbnail that is going to be themed. So whenever you look at our thumbnails, like during the week, try and figure out, it's kind of like a Wordle. You got 5 chances to get it right.
You could do I Saw the Sign and change it up.
That would be the JRP edition for Ace.
That would be the JRP edition, yeah. So
so yeah, should be a lot of fun. Anyway, before I get out of here, let me do this real quick. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Tomorrow we look at the wide receiver position. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Right now it could be interesting because all of a sudden Seattle and Indianapolis have jumped in the quarterback rank. Kara, thank you very much for coming by. Had a lot of fun as always. I'll see you next week.
I thank you. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.